What's going on, guys? It's Pete Nova from the Face Off Sports Network. I'm back with my Week 11 defensive rankings to help you win your fantasy football matchups. If you aren't already, like the video, subscribe, and drop any questions or comments below. I'd be happy to answer them. But let's just jump right into it. The Vikings are going to be my number one defense this week. They take on the Tennessee Titans, who, the Titans are first when it comes to points per game given up to opposing defenses. Offensively, they've been a mess. 25th in EPA since week 6. It's just as bad season long as well. So I like the Vikings to take over that number one spot this week. Switching over to number two, it's going to be the Lions taking on Jacksonville. Jacksonville is 18th in points per game given up this season to opposing defenses in fantasy. They're also 19th in EPA. I don't expect Trevor Lawrence to play, so I really like the Lions in this spot, and they're also at home, and they should be getting help from some acquisitions that they made on the defense this week. The Rams are going to be 3. They're one of my favorite streamers this week. If you haven't checked out my video, go ahead and check out the archives. They're one of my weekly streamers this week. But yeah, they're taking on the Patriots. Patriots are 6th in points per game given up to fantasy defenses, and they're 23rd in EPA since week 6. Drake May has been an improvement, but it hasn't been enough. That offensive line and just the offensive skill weapons around him just aren't great. So I don't really blame him for that. Texans are going to be my 4th defense here. They take on the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys are 8th when it comes to points per game in terms to opposing fantasy defenses, and they're 32nd in EPA. This is pretty bad when you think about the Dallas Cowboys. They've had Dak Prescott. This is EPA from week 6, and they've been pitiful. They're actually 32nd on EPA on the season. They're one of the worst offenses in football. Pretty surprising when I saw that statistic. I like the Packers in terms of my 5th defense this week against Chicago. 12th in points per game. The Bears are when it comes to opposing defenses in fantasy, and 26th in EPA. Caleb Williams just got sacked 9 times. They're making a coordinator change, but I still expect the Packers to get to the quarterback. It's a divisional game. They are on the road, though. The Jets are going to close out this list here at 6. They take on the Indianapolis Colts, who, still have Joe Flacco back there. Flacco's been getting sacked. He's been turning the ball over. This Jets defense didn't look good against Arizona, but they've been able to play pretty decent against inferior teams, at least on defense, and they've been able to get to the quarterback. Indianapolis is 9th when it comes to points per game given up to defenses, and they're also 29th in EPA since week 6 on the year. Shifting over to the next part of the list here, it's going to be the San Francisco 49ers at 7, taking on the Seattle Seahawks. Seahawks, I was pretty surprised. They're 3rd when it comes to points per game given up to opposing defenses in fantasy, 22nd in EPA since week 6. I thought the Seattle the offense was going to get better this year. It showed signs of progression from last year, but still not great. Just making a lot of mistakes. Shifting to defense number 8, it's going to be the Miami Dolphins taking on the Las Vegas Raiders. We love firing up defenses against the Raiders. This is another one of my streamers this week, not heavily owned in fantasy formats this week. And, they're going up against the Raiders, who are 4th in points per game given up to defenses in fantasy and 31st in EPA since week 6. I like the Dolphins in this spot at home. I also forgot to mention, but the 49ers are also at home. So I love taking defenses at home. The Broncos would be 9th versus Atlanta. Again, at home. You'll start to see this trend here with the second part of this list. But the Dolphins take on Atlanta. It's not an easy matchup. 21st when it comes to points per game. The Broncos take on Atlanta, and Atlanta 21st in points per game to fantasy defenses, 7th in EPA. This one it can go one or two ways. This Broncos pass rush can get to Kirk Cousins. I expect that to be what they kind of get their points from. I do expect the Falcons to score, but it's really a matter of how much. And then the Chargers at 10 versus Cincinnati, similar to the Broncos. 2 really good defenses taking on 2 good offenses, but we can't keep them out of the top 12 when they're playing at home. And they take on Cincinnati, who's 19th in points per game given up to opposing fantasy defense. defenses, and 15th in EPA since week 6 are the Cincinnati Bengals. So I like the Chargers here at number 10. Then we're going to look at the Bills at 11 here, taking on the Chiefs. They are at home. This Chiefs offense has not been overwhelming for defenses this year. Denver sacked Mahomes a ton last week. And, the Chiefs are 23rd when it comes to points per game given up to fantasy defenses. So, they haven't given up a ton to fantasy defenses, but the Bills have a good defense. They're 11th in EPA, the Chiefs. But I'm not, this is not a top tier defense. They're outside of the top 10, but they are a good defense. And I expect them to hold the Chiefs somewhere around 21 points this week. And then the Browns take on the Saints to close us out here. 14th in points per game to opposing defenses. The Saints are. We get the Browns away, but the Saints are 30th in EPA since week 6, and this is a really sneaky defense. If I had to pinpoint out of this tier, I could see the Browns, finding their way into that top 6 this week. But a lot of that second tier is just a combination of the first tier is good defenses with a combination of really good matchups. The second tier is really more so good defenses that are really home. They might not have the best matchups, and that's not all of them, but some of them don't have the best matchups like, the Chargers, the Bills, and the Broncos, but they're good defenses and they're at home, which is what we generally like to look for when picking defenses. But that's going to do it for me, guys. If you do like this content, please give me some feedback. This is my first week doing it. Obviously, I do the defensive streamers. I also have the defensive stashes for the playoffs that I just dropped as well. So make sure you check that out. But if you have questions or concerns or any comments that can maybe make these videos more educational or easier for you, please let me know in the comments. But that's going to do it for me, guys. I'll see you guys next time.